Hi everyone, welcome to the online class Kilona. I'm Lavanya. So today we are going to learn apart from the e-way bill, that is, who should generate an e-way bill. So in last class we understood about the e-way bill features and benefits of it and how to generate it, and on we learned the components of it. So in this class we are going to know who should generate an e-way bill. So, an e-way bill is a document that need to be generated when transporting goods with a value exceeding a certain thresholds within India. So, the responsibilities for generating the e-way bill typically falls on registered person, unregistered person, and transporter. Here, when it comes to the registered person, if the registered person is a consignor or a consignee, the goods they need to generate this e-way bill. And when it comes to the unregistered person, if an unregistered person is involved in the transaction as a consignor or a consignee, the registered transporter transporting the goods must generate the e-way bill on behalf of the unregistered person. Here, the responsibility can fall on the supplier, recipient, or a transporter, which depends on the situation. So, let's understand all these three things which generate an e-way bill detailedly. So, the first one is registered person. So, the e-way bill must be generated when there is a movement of goods of more than 50,000 in the value to or from a registered person. A registered person or a transporter may choose to generate and carry e-way bill even if the value of good is less than 5,000. So this registered person, that is consignor or a consignee, a registered person is an individual or an entity who register for goods and service tax. If the registered person is a consignor who is a supplier of the goods, they will be the responsible for generating the e-way bill before moving the goods. If the registered person in the consignee, that is recipient of the good, they need to generate the e-way bill in some cases, such as if there is a collecting the goods themselves. So, the registered person can use this e-way bill portal or other authorities means to generate the e-way bill using a detail like invoice number, transportation detail, and goods descriptions. Let's have an example. Imagine a registered furniture manufacturer, that is a consignor, who sells a branch of chair to a registered retailer, that is consignee. Here, the manufacturer need to deliver the chairs to the retailer store since both parties are registered for GST. Here, the furniture manufacturer, that is a consignor, should generate the e-way bill using details like invoice, transporter information, and description of the chair. This is the best example for understanding the registered person. And the next one is unregistered person. Here, the unregistered person, if the consignor or a consignee is not registered for a GST, an unregistered person, may the goods need to be transported. The registered transporter who transport the goods can generate the e-way bill, and also he'll be responsibly fallen to the transporter because they are holding the movement of goods and need to compile with legal requirements. So, this unregistered person are also required to generate this e-way bill. However, where a supplier is made by unregistered person to registered person. So, this receiver will have and ensure all the complaints are met as if they were a supplier. Let's have an example. An unregistered small scale farm, that is consignor, sells a large quantity of vegetable to the registered grocery store, that is consignee. So, Since the farm is not registered for GST, but the grocery stores hires a registered transporter to move the goods. So this responsibility falls on the transporter to generate the e-way bill using the information provided by the grocery stores and the farm. This is an example for unregistered person. And the next one is transporter. Here, a transporter carries goods by road, air, railway, sea, etc. Even also need to generate an e-way bill if the transporter has not generated an e-way bill. So, if the consigner or the consignee is registered person but does not generate the e-way bill, and the responsibility can fall on the transporter of the goods, right? So the transporter can generate the e-way bill based on the information provided by the consigner or a consignee. So this is common when goods are being transported for the third party logistic company or an independent transporter. This transportation carries uh, is also need to generate an e-way bill if the supplier has not generated an e-way bill. For example, a registered electronic wholesaler who is a consignor sells a large quantity of TV to registered retailer, that is consignee. The one who sell is a consignor and the one who sell is a consignee. So the retailer hires a third party transport company to move the goods. If the wholesaler does not register the e-way bill, the transporter can generate it based on the information provided by the wholesaler or retailer, such as invoice number and goods and descriptions. So these are the three things where this e-way bill helps you to generate this e-way bill mainly responsibly or typically fall into these three things, that is registered person, unregistered person and transporter. So the next topic is condition for generating e-way bill. So what are the conditions we need to generate this e-way bill? What are the conditions will be generated? So the first one will be threshold value. So, an e-way bill must be generated when the value of the consignment exceeds the threshold limit specifically by the government. So, the limit is generated a set of 50,000 for both intrastate and interstate movement, but the individual state might have a different limits. So, for example, a registered clothing retailer consignor ships a consignment of clothes worth 60,000 to the customer. So, they will be the consignee in the another city. Since the consignment value exceeds the threshold limit of 50,000, the retailer must generate an e-way bill. This is how the threshold value is one of the conditions for generating a e-way bill. The next condition will be transportation mode. Here, the e-way bill are required for all types of transportation mode, which includes road, railway, air, and water. So, let's have an example for this transportation mode. For example, a registered electronic manufacturer sells a large consignment of laptop to a retailer, that is consignee, in another state using a transportation truck. Since the transportation mode is by road, the manufacturer need to generate an e-way bill. The next one is goods being transported. The e-way bill must include details about the goods being transported, which includes description, quantity, HSN code, that is harmonized system of nomenclature. So let's have an example for goods being transported. Let's say a registered wholesaler of agriculture product consignor ships a large quantity of wheat to mill consignee. The e-way bill must include details such as quantity, that is 1000 kg, description will be wheat, and the HSN will be 1101, like that, any with 4-digit code. So let's have an example. Let's have another example. Here, a registered retailer who is in Delhi, who need to ship a large quantity of rice to the warehouse. The e-way bill must include details such as a quantity, net description, and SHS, HSN code, all this. So the next point is intrastate and interstate transportation. It is also one of the conditions for generating e-way bill. So here the e-way bill are needed for both intra and interstate of transportation of goods. As you know, intra is within the state, inter is between different states. So let's have an example. A registered retailer who is a consignor in Delhi sends a consignment of electronics to the retailer who is a consignee in Mumbai. Since this is an interstate movement, a e-way bill must be generated. Conversely, if the retailer sends the consignment to another store within Delhi and the way bill is required for interstate movement, if the consignment value exceeds the threshold, that is, exceeds more than 50,000. The next condition is registered person involved. If either the consignor or a consignee is registered for GST, they should generate the e-way bill if the value of goods being transported exceeds the threshold. For example, a registered supplier or sends a consignment to a furniture to registered buyer in the same state. Both, since both parties are registered for GST, an e-way bill must be generated for the consignment. And the next condition is transporter role. Here, the transporter role will be if the consignor or a consignee does not generate the e-way bill, the transporter must generate it using a detail provided by them. For example, an unregistered seller sells an agricultural produce to registered grocery store. The grocery store hires a registered transporter to move the goods. Since the seller is unregistered and the grocery store does not generate the e-way bill, then the transporter must generate it. So the next will be job work. If the principal sends goods to a job work for a job work, and e-bill must be generated if the value of good exceeds the threshold. If the value of goods exceeds the threshold. For example, a registered furniture manufacturer is a principal sends a wooden chest to register the carpenter is a job worker for processing. Since the value of goods exceeds the threshold, the manufacturer must generate an e-way bill. The next condition is multiple consignments in one vehicle. So, if a multiple consignment from the different consignors and the consignee are being transported in a single vehicle, so the consolidated e-way bill must be generated. For example, let's take a truck is carrying a multiple consignment from different suppliers to generate the retailer. So, a consolidated e-way bill must be generated to include all the separate e-way bills for each consignment loaded onto the vehicles. And the next condition is exemption. Certain goods and specific scenarios may be exempted from the e-way bill requirement. This includes Goods being transported in certain non motorized conveyance, such as bicycle or a hand cart, and goods covered by specific type of bills, such as a bill of entry for the export. Example for the exemption will be a small consignment of goods worth 5,000 is being transported on a bicycle within the same city. Since the value is below the threshold and a mode of transport is not motorized, an e-way bill is not required. So, this is the example for exemption. Here, let's have an example for the exemption. A small consignment of goods worth 5,000 is being transported on a bicycle within the same city. Since the value is below the threshold and the mode of transport is non motorized, an e-way bill is not required. So, the next condition will be validity of e-way bill. Here, the validity of e-way bill depends on a distance to be covered. So, generally, an e-way bill is valid for 1 day for every 100 kilometer of distance. For example, an e-way bill is generated for a distance of 200 kilometer. The e-way bill is valid for 2 days because the validity period is 1 day for every 100 kilometers of distance traveled. So these are the 10 conditions for generating an e-way bill. In a simple form, the movement of goods must be in a vehicle or a convenience. The value of goods being transported must exceed 50,000. The movement of goods must be in relation to a supplier or a reason other than a supplier. For example, a return also. The movement of good must be due to an inward supply for an unregistered from an unregistered person. So these are the basic you have to know, and these 10 points conditions are very important for generating an e-way bill. When it comes to the validity of e-way bill, your validity of e-way bill depends on a distance that goods are being transported. Here, the time period for each and e-way bill remains valid is calculated based on the distance to be covered. As specified in e-way bill, here are the key details regarding the valid for an e-way bill. So let's understand one by one. The first one is distance covered. The validity of e-way bill is determined by a distance mentioned in e-way bill. The distance is usually calculated based on the most direct route from the place of origin to the destination. For example, suppose a registered furniture manufacturer ships a consignment of a chair to the retailer, that is consignee, in a different city. The distance between the manufacturer and the retailer is 3,500 is covered. Since the distance is over 300 km, the e-way bill will be valid for 4 days. For 1 day each 100 kilometers of the journey. So, by knowing this valid period of an e-way bill helps the consignor or a consignee or any transporter plan the transportation of good within the legal time frames. Avoid penalty also. When it comes to the second point, valid period, here for every 100 kilometers of distance, the e-way bill is valid for 1 day. If the distance is less than 100 km, the e-way bill will be valid for 1 day itself. For distance exceeding 100 kilometers, the valid period increases the proportionally. For example, if a distance is 250 kilometer, the e-way bill will be valid for 3 days. One day is for 100 kilometers, another day is for 100 kilometers, and one more day for remaining 50 kilometers. That totally will contains the e-way bill will be valid for 3 days. This is how the valid period works. And when it comes to the additional time, if the e-way bill is about to expire, the transporter may exceed its valid if unforeseen circumstances such as valid vehicle breakdown or a delay occurs during transportation. This can be uh, taken as a reason, and the valid period can be extended. So the extension of validity. This extension of validity is the validity can be extended by the transporter or a registered person, that is consignor or a consignee, based on the situation. This must be done before the expire of the original e-way bill. And the next one is consequence of expire. If the valid period expires and the goods are still in transit, the transporter may face penalty if caught during checks. So these are the five important things which you should be aware of validity of eBay bill regarding to this. So as I told, this example helps you to understand the validity of eBay bill. For example, suppose a registered furniture manufacturer, that is a consignor, ships a consignment of a chair to the retailer, that is consignee, in a different city. The distance will be manufacturer and the retailer will be 350 kilometers. So the distance is over 300 kilometers. So the e-way bill will be valid for 4 days. For one day it will be 100, and the second day will be 100, and the third day will be 100. But for the fourth day it will be 50 kilometers, since one day for each 100 kilometers of a journey. Knowing the valid period of e-way bill helps you to consignor or consignee or a transporter planner the transport of goods within a legal time frame and avoid some penalty. When it comes to the table of validity of e-way bill, here are the type of conveyance. The one first one is other than over dimensional cargo, and for over dimensional cargo distance less than 200 kilometers, the validity of EWB, that is e-way bill, will be one day. For every additional 200 kilometers apart thereof, additional one day will be given. When it comes to the for over dimensional cargo less than 20 kilometers, the valid of e-way bill will be one day. For every additional 20 kilometers or a part of thereof, additional one day will be given. So, when it comes to the first one, that is other than over dimensional cargo, is also called as a standard cargo. So, let's have an example for this conveyance. Here, a scenario like a registered electronic manufacturer, that is consignor, ships a consignment of laptop to a retailer, that is consignee, in another city. So the distance from the manufacturer to the retailer is 250 kilometers. The validity for the distance of 250 kilometers, the e-way bill is valid for 3 days. This is calculated as the first 1 kilometers of a journey counts for one day. The next 100 kilometers of journey will be counted for the total 2 days, and the remaining 50 kilometers for an additional day, that is third day. Therefore, the e-way bill for the consignment of laptop will be valid for 3 days. from the date and the time it is generated. So when the distance is less than 200 kilometers, the validity will be 1 day. For every additional 200 kilometers, the additional 1 day will be given as a valid. When it comes to the second conveyance, that is for over dimensional cargo, that is, let's have a scenario. A registered construction company, that is consignor, needs to transport a large piece of over dimensional construction equipment such as a crane for a construction site 1050 kilometers away. The validity for over dimensional cargo, the e-way bill is valid for longer period. This general rule is 1 day for a valid for every 20 kilometer of distance. For a distance of 150 kilometer, the e-way bill will be valid for 7.5 day. So the calculation is followed like 150 kilometers is divided into 20 kilometers is equals to 7.5 days. Therefore, the e-way bill for over-dimensional cargo will be valid for approximately 8 days. That is 7 full day plus a fraction of day from the date and the time it is generated. So this example shows how the validity of e-way bill varies depends on a type of cargo being transported and the distance to be covered. So adjusting the valid based on these factors, it ensures the transportation of goods complies with legal requirements. So these are the two way of convenience and a validity of e-way bill. Here in this over dimensional cargo, the distance which is less than 20 kilometers, the validity of e-way bill will be 1 day. For every additional 20 kilometers, the additional 1 day will be calculated as a valid of e-way bill. So today in this class, we understood the e-way bill, who can generate this e-way bill, and what are the conditions required for it, and what are the validity for this e-way bill. We understood each and everything in this e-way bill. In the next class, we'll understand how to set up this e-way bill in Tally. So let's wind up the class. Thank you.